All right.
Ew.
Hello. How's everybody doing today?
Alive and well.
Yeah, look, we all have our shirts on.
We have the same
We
one on.
met.
That's funny.
We did. I was able to throw mine on after. I was a little crazy today. So let's
Mm.
talk about where everybody is right now. Steven, where are you?
Tacoma, Washington.
Oh,
I'm
representing the
actually at
West
home.
Coast.
I'm actually at home today. Yeah.
Nice. How about you, Therese?
I am in Apex, North Carolina, where the temperature last week was cold and now it's warm.
Well, you're lucky, man. We've been cold in New England. It's been like the 50s. I'm actually in East Long Branch, New Jersey. And I'm going to take a picture later on. It is hazy and smoky. There's a fire 20 minutes from here. My hotel room is starting to smell a little bit like a campfire. So, in addition to the smoke coming from Canada, they have developed their own fire.
Fun.
Yeah, it's super fun. So we're here to recap a little bit about what we're talking about this week on our Hard Market Hero. Obviously, this will be turned into a podcast releasing Friday if anybody misses it. But this week is all about how to have the chat about rate, right? So I'd love to just kind of talk a little bit about how some of us like to handle that conversation, because I'm seeing some great information coming back from the people who are taking the course, who are engaging with us, but it's not an easy conversation. So let's start off. What are some of the preconceived notions people have in their head about rate, and especially from the agent side? Because I dealt with this even before we were live today.
Ooh, ooh, ooh. Pick me. Pick me.
I guess I will pick you.
As an agent, it's my job to find the cheapest coverage possible for the client because that's what everybody wants.
Yep, that's a good preconceived notion right there for sure. So how do we refute that?
We need to look at value versus price and get to the bottom of what the client actually might need. We need to look at coverage options. We need to give them the option to decide what they can and can't afford and give them all the information needed to make an educated decision.
I like that. I also think that this goes into something we talk about in the session, which is don't shop with your own back pocket, right? I don't know what's expensive to Stephen or Therese, and they don't know what's expensive to me, right? And I think a lot of times we insert the price into the conversation, right? We've been talking a lot about how people have that initial reaction and then a response to price. Once you explain it, it's logical, and people are like, oh, that makes sense. Okay, I get it now. Thank you. But a lot of times we jump in like they're upset. They asked a question about their rate.
They had a question.
They had a question.
Well, and that kind of rolls into mine is rate is just a question. And I think when they call in and say, why did my rate go up? For some reason, they hear, I want a remarket. I want a requote. I want lower prices. We hear what we think in our heads that they're saying when it really is only a question.
Yeah. And I think a lot sometimes, as we're dealing with the price sensitivity, it's, oh my gosh, I see this price. I have to call this person and tell them. And there's a lot of pent up anxiety about that, right? Because maybe we haven't done it enough. We haven't got enough reps in. Our heads go to protecting us, which means worst case scenario, right? Worst case scenario, this person loses their shiznazel on me.
And we'd love to take the worst experience we've ever had and project it on every similar situation.
Oh my gosh, like airports are my favorite because a flight gets canceled and like the worst of humanity comes right on out, like rearing its little lovely head, and you're like, okay. So I think that all these things are really valid. So I also feel like another reason why people have a lot of sensitivity around rate is agencies by large have not given them a script to use, right? We'll just talk to them about it. Well, that's like me going out and my husband does elevators and being like, oh, just go on stage and talk about elevators. You read an article. Can't you just go do it? And I think that the account managers really want a plan and structure, who to remarket, who not to remarket, what to say, what not to say. And I think that they usually will do what's requested if it's clear what's requested. And in a lot of agencies, I think it's super unclear what the goal is.
Did you see the question about the doctor?
The $16, what was it? The $16
No, there was one.
question?
There was one about a doctor who doesn't understand how, they thought he was like a top tier client, and then they realized that he has got 3 at-fault accidents, 4 comp claims in 2 years on an auto, and 2 water claims on his home.
So he's a doctor that rides dirty.
Yeah. So they were like, I think they were just looking at their clients, and they realized that this may not be a top tier VIP client.
Just because he's a doctor doesn't mean that he knows how to drive.
For sure.
So I think as an agency, that the agencies who have subscribed to this have given their team a lot of great tools to fight this hard market, which has been awesome. I think another thing that when we talk about having the rate conversation is just explaining things to people, but also, my favorite part of the whole script, and I want to hear all of you guys because we got a 5-part script. I love the insurance commissioner part. I'm just going to say it. I think telling people that how it works and the insurance commissioners to approve the rate increases is such a leg up because it doesn't feel so personal. It doesn't feel like it's being attacked. It feels like there was a process, it's been followed, and this is the outcome from the process. But I'm curious, what are each of your favorite parts of the script?
Well, I always jump to the escrow one because I had a situation where I didn't change my insurance. I actually refinanced my loan, and when I did, they said, "Oh, you've got $582 refund," and I'm like, "No, is my escrow short?" And they're like, "No, it's not short at all." So I took the money and stuck it into an account, and then a year later, they come back, "Oh, your escrow is $582 short." And so I have an experience with this when it comes to remarketing, the script about, hey, do you really want to deal with these problems? Because those problems are real. And they don't realize how hard it's going to be. I called the bank and said, is my escrow short? And they were like, no. I called them twice, asked 2 different people the same question, and they swore it was not short. And it was a year later. Crazy.
We should get them on there, and they should have to pay for it.
Yeah, for sure.
I need that money to go buy things.
Like pay my mortgage.
Rude.
Well, and that's usually what people do. And then when they want the money back, they don't have it because they spent it. So you have to be careful.
All the feelings come out during that, right?
What's your favorite script there, Stephen?
I love asking if they can make a down payment today.
On what though? Like on a renewal or
no? So if we're having to go to market for them, then that.
No, if they shopped, then you're trying to close it.
Then yes, trying to get it to stop, right? By saying, can you make a payment today?
Let me clarify the question a little bit more. So on the on the rate script, like how we explain rate to try to dodge
how do we explain rate?
Yeah.
Yes, I love dodging remarket because who doesn't? I think that I love doubling down on the discounts, just really going through and reviewing the discounts with them and making sure that they are understanding their coverage and the discounts available to them.
Well, and breaking up the numbers. It's crazy how many people don't realize how to break up the numbers. When it's a big number, you only give them a big number when it's to their benefit. When you're going to add more, you make it a smaller number. The smaller, the better. I mean, and some people in the actual session said, oh, that's only 50 cents a day. And when you break it down, that's how those dog commercials, the SPCA get you. They say, for only 15 cents a day. And then you count it and you're like, oh, that's wow. So I think when we look at the math and we change the math, we realize that using math in a certain way and how we use it can make a big difference in how we explain things to customers.
If I think about it a little bit more, we actually had an amazing conversation three different times today with 3 different people about framing the rate. So like really breaking it down, like, I totally understand everything's going up. Did you know I just went and got a bag of Doritos and it was $7? Can you imagine?
Fancy Doritos you're eating.
Well, no. Like if you go to the store, Doritos are now like $6 a bag. There was a huge surge on
Ooh.
chip prices or something. I don't know.
Now, I have to say, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but the size of things have changed. They didn't change the price. What they did is they made the bottles smaller. So if you look at stuff, they're still selling it for the price, but they're making the bottle smaller. And a lot of people don't notice that. I'm very visual, so I know. I'm like, oh, this bottle is a little bit smaller than it was last time.
So I think just kind of framing the rate as well, like, hey, everything's going up. Maybe here's some reasons why, and talking them through their renewal that way too.
Yeah, I think all those are really valid. I also think, the late night DJ voice of how to use your tone of voice to your favor is so huge, and calming people down in an effective way. The biggest question we got, the biggest question I think you guys got from the first session, Therese, was, there's a big quote in there that we use a few times, which is, if you can't afford the insurance, you can't afford the claim.
Yeah.
And people had a lot of questions. Well, how do I say that to a customer without sounding like a jerk face?
Yeah.
And obviously that's more of an internal statement. I think it would take a very particular type of personality and client to say, well, Stephen, if you can't afford the insurance, you can't afford the claim. So I wouldn't go using that directly with everybody. But I'm curious, like how I gave my answer in the last session, but how would you guys explain that to a client?
I think it's having to define what's important to them as well, and then build the value around that, making sure that they're understanding that we're trying to help them protect what's important.
Mm-hmm.
And so then they better understand, like, if you can't afford the insurance, you can't afford the claim, or get to the bottom of what is the true question that they have, or maybe not what they're not understanding. People don't like to pay for what they don't understand.
Sure.
So really educating them on what it is, or finding that common ground by building a relationship with them.
The person who asked the question in the first section actually emailed me, and I gave her 5 responses. I said, is your customer service worth $16 a month? That's like 50 cents a day. A cup of coffee or lunch is out. Can you find a discount that can counteract the $16? If you do and they decline that discount, they're saying yes to a $16 increase and no to a discount. If they paid in full, they probably could get that money. It probably would be less than, probably better than $16 a month savings. Can you change the deductibles? And this is where I would say mention the deductibles, because you can raise the deductibles, but then you're also kind of educating them on, if you raise your deductibles, you're going to save this amount of money a month. But then if your windshield breaks, for instance, you're going to have to pay $500 to get it fixed. And then they'll be like, what, $500? And that's where you start educating about deductibles. I also said, are they monoline? Remind them that they can bundle and save. You want to cross sell. So if they're monoline, and then this may be a customer that you want to donate to your competition. If they're complaining about that $16, you may want to donate them.
Here you go. We'd love for you to have them.
I was talking with somebody on a training, and they go, you know what? I had a customer whose rate was about $3,000. And he wouldn't stop complaining about it. So I told him I could get it for him cheaper, that we don't normally do it, but for him, I will. And so I did a quote, and it was bare minimum, high deductible, no options. And I got it down to $500. And I said, look, I can issue this policy for you, but you better not call me unless the house burns to the ground, because that's the only thing that's going to be covered. Windows get broken, hail happens, whatever. You cannot call me unless the house literally burns to the ground. That's the only thing we're going to cover with this policy. And the client was like, well, that's pretty clear. He's like, so which one do you want? So, I mean, maybe that's not the right attitude, but I think he must have had a good relationship with the client when he did that. But it got the point across of, do you want cheap or do you want coverage?
It's a good point. I kind of use the answer of, like, hey, I understand that this might not be in your budget, but let me ask you a question. If you got into an accident, would you want a rental car? Yeah, absolutely. Or, all right, so let me ask you this. If somebody, falls and slips on your property and they can't work any longer, are you prepared to come out of pocket? No, I don't want to do that. I want my insurance. Okay, so you want higher coverages than you might think you do, because these are the things that would get covered. So kind of almost like reverse engineering it, like making it their idea, making it a little bit more kind from that perspective, I think is a big ordeal of, a lot of people come up saying, I don't want to pay more. The agency I was at today, they had a person who bought a brand new truck cash, and lo and behold, they did not want to pay more than $140 a month for their insurance. That was their number. And, a brand new truck cash means that they probably have the money, but they don't want to spend it because they just spent $90,000 out of their pocket for a truck, which is fine. But we also, I think, need to take a big old step back and a breather on that and say, okay, well, what do you want to happen in these situations? So if you want these things to happen, this is what it costs. If you want $140, if you could even get that, right, depending on where you are and what their driving record is and everything else, here's what you would get. And you have to illustrate things to people. I think we get so tripped up when some of the conversations aren't simple and easy, or the person needs a little bit more communication to get there. You got to work on it and work through it. I also just realized that I look completely high because of all the smoke in the air. My eyes are
I didn't see it till you said it, so there you go.
Yeah, me neither. No, and of course, I got that sinus infection, so I'm just over here like.
We're a whack pack, huh?
Yeah.
So let's talk about what's next, right? So we have next week coming up hot, coming up strong. And we have next week is how to do a renewal review, which is one of my personal faves. So what do we have as far as renewal reviews? Anybody have any of their favorites, areas they're excited to cover next week?
I think the review sheet is amazing, and people are going to love it because it just does so much. So you're not, on Friday afternoon when somebody calls in, you've got that review sheet and it fills everything in for you. It does the math for you. Yes, it does the math for you. It highlights stuff for you. So I think, it's a great resource to have. And then when you get the hang of it, being proactive instead of reactive, these sheets are so helpful, and it gets you in the rhythm. And it's like a strategy, and it kind of gets you in a rhythm to be able to do the reviews and be so much more proactive than reactive.
I like the part where we talk about the different things to think about, like the pros and cons of different kinds of reviews, like reactive reviews, certain rate reviews, or when we do very proactive reviews, and just giving kind of the highlights of the different ways to do reviews, because I know not every agency is the same, and we would love for everybody to be very proactive, but I think it gives people a different point of reference and a different way to look at it as well.
And discount scrubbing too. Yeah.
My favorite thing about the renewal review sheet is the thing that, because I deal a lot with the agency owners, and there is a lot of trepidation from some agency owners to make renewal reviews for fear that the team's going to shop everybody. It's going to trigger people to shop. And I think I always kind of say, why do you feel that your team can't have this conversation? And they look at me and they go, well, all the people calling in, that's what they do. They shop. And I said, well, those are the people who are calling in. Let's talk about the people who aren't calling in. And I said, if we had them just follow this process, where do you think they would be? And then they're like, so they just have to read this. I'm like, they just read it, and the script's right on there, and they can go to the next step and the next step and the next step. And then anybody can pick up. And is it work? Yeah, it's some work. Year one, and then year two, so much easier. So I just always encourage everybody to think through, like, if renewal reviews have you a little anxious because you're not sure what your team is equipped yet or trained yet on what to say, that sheet actually just tells everybody what to say next.
And I mean, it's even great for like new employees, new staff, because it helps them walk right through it.
It's actually super funny you say that, because any agency that has a newer account managers, they love the sheet. The OGs are like, I don't need this. And I'm like, everybody needs this.
Every single one of you needs this.
And then after a while, they get used to it. And I'm like, I kind of like it. I kind of like it. But it's a structured phone call then, as opposed to what's new, what's happening, anything change? You're good. I'm good. All good. Nothing's changed. So nothing in your life has changed in 5 years. Nothing. Not a single thing. No, everything's the same. Well, why don't we talk about what you got and we'll go from there, And I think a lot of people need that structure to have a really effective renewal review call. And they're so powerful. Like, it's been almost humbling for me because I've been on this renewal review call bandwagon. People probably want to shut me up about it, but I call it penicillin. It solves like every major challenge in your agency, from contact information to E&O to cross sells to coverage increases to you buy a book and how to introduce yourself to reducing remarketing to getting referrals. It solves like everything all in one foul swoop. And it can be very efficient when you do it right. But the people who have done it, been doing it for a while, are so grateful in this hard market to have a couple years under their belt of doing it, because it's 10 times easier now. They've built that rapport and that relationship with people, where people just starting it now are kind of starting it off with delivering the news of your rates have gone up. And that's not a reason not to start it, people, because no time like the present. But I think it's one of those things where if you had wished you'd done it 2 years ago, you're probably right. You should start it 2 years ago.
For sure.
All right. So we have one more session. This will get released on podcasts on Friday next week, all about how to conduct those renewal reviews inside the school login. If you're participating in Hard Market Hero, you will have our renewal review sheet, which will be amazing for you guys to have. You'll get exactly what we do. We do tailor them for our consulting clients, but really excited. And then we just have one big one after that, which is the remarketing side. So guys, any final words for our loyal listeners and viewers?
Well, and then we have the bonus sections about cancellations. That one's huge, to stop cancellations, because a lot of people don't know how to do that, and we need to give them the strategies for that. And coastal and fire markets, but then don't forget the swag and the recorded sessions. Those are important.
All right, everybody. Well, you guys have a great evening, and we will catch up with everybody on our next session.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Bye.